My name is Lisa. I had recently turned 40, but sometimes it felt like I was just beginning to understand life. I worked in marketing in a bustling city, which was a far cry from the small town where I grew up and where my past lay, including memories of my ex-husband, Max. I remember the first time I met Max. It was at a small cafe in our hometown. He had dark hair, a confident walk, and a smile that made me feel like I was the only one in the room. "Hi, I'm Max. You're Lisa, right?" he had said, offering a firm handshake that lingered a tad longer than necessary. "Yes, and you're..." I had pretended not to know him. It was a small town, after all. Everyone knew everyone. Max Harrison. I've seen you around. Wanted to come up and say hi." We chatted for a while. He was easy to talk to, and we found a lot in common. Within a few months, we were inseparable. Marriage followed, and then came our precious Emily. Emily was the light of our lives. She had my eyes and Max's stubbornness. She was the perfect blend of both of us. But as the years rolled on, it wasn't just Emily's traits that became evident. Max's need for control began to seep into our daily lives. Everything had to be just so, from the color of the curtains to the friends I hung out with. I felt boxed in, trapped. It wasn't love anymore. It was a cage. 10 years into our marriage, I had had enough. It was a painful decision, but I filed for divorce. Max didn't take it well. Neither did his mother, Clara. She had never liked me and made it evident with every chance she got. After the divorce, I moved to another city for a fresh start and a new job. Emily, being the teenage girl she was, chose to stay with Max. She didn't want to leave her school and friends behind. I understood her reasons, but it broke my heart to be away from her. We decided to connect every day on Skype. It wasn't the same as hugging her tight or braiding her hair, but it was something. One evening, after a particularly grueling day at work, I called Emily. The screen lit up, and there she was, her bright eyes shining, her hair pulled into a messy bun. "Hey, Mom," she greeted, her voice a welcome balm to my tired soul. "Hi, sweetie, how was school today?" "It was okay. Jenny and I are working on a project together." "Oh, and guess what? Brian said he might come to my birthday party." I smiled. "That's great, Em. And speaking of your birthday, any idea what your dad is planning as a gift?" She hesitated, her eyes darting away from the screen. I'm not sure. We haven't talked about it much." I felt a prickle of unease, but brushed it aside. Maybe she just wanted it to be a surprise. Little did I know, this was the beginning of a whirlwind of events that would change our lives forever. After our call, I couldn't shake the feeling that Emily was hiding something from me. She had always been open about her life, so her hesitance caught me off guard. As I got ready for bed, my mind raced with possibilities. Was she hiding a boyfriend? Was she struggling at school? The next morning, as I sipped my coffee, I decided to do a little digging. I logged into the social media platform where Emily and her friends were most active. Using my mom account, which was really just a profile I created to keep an eye on her without being intrusive, I scrolled through her posts and those of her friends. That's when I stumbled upon it, a post from Emily that made my heart drop to my stomach. It read, "I'm cool, my father will give me plastic surgery for my birthday." The comments below were a mix of shock, excitement, and envy from her peers. I sat back in my chair, aghast. Plastic surgery? She was only 16. I quickly grabbed my phone and dialed Max's number. "Max," I began, trying to keep my voice steady, "is it true? Are you really planning to give Emily plastic surgery for her birthday?" There was a pause, and then his deep voice came through, dripping with irritation. "Why do you care? She's with me now. You made your choice." "It's not about us, Max. It's about Emily. She's just a kid." "She's not a kid anymore," he shot back. "Besides, it's something she wants." I could hear the defensiveness in his tone. Did she tell you that? Or did you put the idea in her head? Before he could respond, another voice chimed in. It was shrill and unmistakable. Clara. Yes, we'll get her plastic surgery because she looks too much like you. I was taken aback. Clara, why are you involved in this? She laughed, a bitter sound that made my skin crawl. Why wouldn't I be? She's my granddaughter. Enough, Clara, Max intervened, though there was no real force behind his words. Lisa, stay out of it. Emily's with me now. I won't stand by and let you make such a life-changing decision for her, I replied, my voice firm. Max sighed. She wants this, Lisa. It's not like we're forcing her. But why, Max? Why would she want something like this at her age? I don't have to explain myself to you, he retorted, and ended the call. I sat there, phone in hand, the weight of the revelation pressing down on me. My beautiful daughter, who I had always told was perfect just the way she was considering changing herself, and Max and Clara were encouraging it. Tears blurred my vision. I needed to do something. I had to talk to Emily, understand her perspective. Maybe, just maybe, I could make her see that she didn't need to change herself for anyone. Upon arriving in my hometown, the nostalgia of the familiar streets and places was overpowering. Still, my focus remained unwavering. I had to speak with Emily. Our chosen spot was Daisy's Delight, a cafe filled with memories of our shared times. Hey, Em, I began gently when she arrived, her presence filling me with both relief and anxiety. Mom, she said with a note of surprise in her voice. What are you doing here? Taking a deep breath, I decided to tackle the subject head on. I saw your post about the plastic surgery. Almost immediately, her face transformed from surprise to frustration. Why can't you just stay out of my life? Why do you always have to meddle? She shot back. Taken aback, I tried to explain. Em, I'm just concerned. It's a big decision. She slammed her hands on the table, drawing a few glances from nearby customers. This is my life, Mom. You left. You moved away and left me with Dad. You don't get a say in this. Emily, I tried to keep my voice steady. This isn't about us or where I live. It's about making sure you're not making a decision you might regret. She glared at me, her eyes glistening with anger. Dad and Grandma Clara think it's a good idea? Maybe if you were around more, you'd understand. I'm here now, I said quietly, trying to bridge the gap widening between us. And I just want what's best for you. She pushed her chair back abruptly. You always say that, but all you do is control everything, just like with Dad. Without another word, she stormed out of the cafe, leaving me stunned and worried amidst the remnants of our confrontation. The weight of our argument hung heavily on me. I couldn't shake the feeling of guilt and confusion. Was I being too controlling, or was I genuinely trying to protect Emily from a decision she might regret? As I pondered this, an idea struck me. Perhaps if Emily heard from people who loved her and saw her for the beautiful person she was, she might reconsider. Returning to my hotel room, I pulled out my laptop and signed into my social media account. I selected a beautiful picture of Emily and me from one of our recent vacations. The sun was setting, casting a golden hue, and our smiles were genuine and wide. With a deep breath, I typed, "My beautiful daughter, Emily. So proud of her every day. Every time I look at her, I see perfection. I see strength, intelligence, and beauty inside and out." Hitting post, I felt a mixture of hope and anxiety. The minutes felt like hours as I waited for reactions to come in. The first comment appeared from my college friend Sarah. Emily has grown into such a beautiful young lady. She looks just like you, Lisa. Both gorgeous. Then another from my cousin Mark. Wow, time flies. Emily's a spitting image of you when you were her age. Absolutely stunning. More comments poured in, each one praising Emily for her natural beauty, intelligence, and charm. Feeling a little better, I decided to call my best friend Jane for some advice. "Hey, Lisa," Jane answered. "How's everything?" "Hey, Jane, it's been rough," I began, explaining the situation. Jane listened patiently, then said, "You know, kids at Emily's age are often influenced by so many factors. Peer pressure, the desire to fit in, and sometimes, unfortunately, by family too." "I know," I replied, "but I just want her to see how amazing she already is. You've done your part. Sometimes affirmation from others can be powerful. Let her see how others view her." And she was right. Later that evening, my phone buzzed with a new message. It was from Emily. "Hey, Mom, I saw your post," her message began, "and I read all the comments. It's a lot to take in." I replied immediately, "I just wanted to remind you of how many people love and appreciate you for who you are." There was a pause before she wrote back, "Thanks, Mom. I've been thinking a lot. Can we meet tomorrow?" Relief washed over me. "Of course, Em. Anytime." It was a small victory, but it was a start. The power of kind words and affirmation had managed to pierce through the cloud of confusion and doubt, if only just a little. The sun was high in the sky as I approached the house where I once lived. My memories of it were interlaced with emotions, both fond and painful. I took a deep breath and rang the doorbell, bracing myself for the confrontation. Clara, with her signature tight bun, answered the door. Her eyes narrowed at the sight of me. "Lisa," she remarked, her voice cold. "I need to speak with Max," I said, meeting her gaze with determination. Before she could retort, Max's voice came from behind her. "Let her in, Mom." Stepping into the familiar living room, I felt a rush of past memories. But there was no time for sentimentality. "We need to talk about Emily," I began. Max, his face betraying a mixture of annoyance and defiance, said, "I knew you'd have something to say about it." "Why the surgery, Max?" I asked, trying to keep my voice even. "She's just a child." He exhaled sharply, his gaze unwavering. "She looks too much like you, Lisa." I was taken aback. What does that even mean? Clara, never one to stay silent, added, "Every time we see her, we're reminded of you, of everything that went wrong." "I want her to be her own person, not your shadow," Max declared, his tone biting. "I don't care if this isn't what Emily wants. I want to forget. Every time I look at her, I see you, and it brings back all the bad memories." His words stung, but I wouldn't back down. "So you'd put Emily through a life-changing procedure just to erase your memories of me?" Before he could respond, a noise from the hallway caught our attention. Emily stood there, her face pale, having overheard our conversation. The room was heavy with a painful silence. Tears filled her eyes as she looked between the three of us, her voice barely above a whisper. "Is this why you want me to change, Dad? Because of Mom?" Max, for the first time, seemed lost for words. The reality of the situation and the weight of his daughter's pain evident on his face. The atmosphere in the room was thick with tension. Emily, her eyes red from the tears, stood there, a mix of hurt and anger on her face. All eyes were on her, waiting for her to speak. "Dad," she began, her voice trembling. "Is this what you think of me? Just a reflection of Mom?" Max looked flustered, clearly caught off guard. "Emily, it's not like that." "Then what is it like?" she retorted, her voice gaining strength. "You want to change me because you don't like what you see? Because I remind you of Mom?" Clara attempted to intervene. "Emily, it's for the best. You'll understand when you're older." I watched as my daughter squared her shoulders, facing her grandmother. "No, Grandma. I understand now. I understand that I'm just a pawn in this twisted game between you two and Mom." Feeling a need to step in, I said, "Em, this isn't your fault. None of this is. You shouldn't be dragged into our problems." Emily turned to face me. "But I am, Mom. I'm right in the middle of it." Max, seeming to find his voice, said, "Emily, I thought it would be a fresh start for us, away from the past." "At my expense?" Emily shot back, her eyes searching his for answers. "You're willing to change me, make me go through something so drastic, just so you can forget? Why can't you just accept me as I am?" Clara, looking more unsettled than I'd ever seen her, tried to speak. "We just thought it was for the best." "For whose best, Grandma? Yours or mine?" Emily's voice quivered, but her resolve was clear. I felt a mix of pride and heartache seeing my daughter stand up for herself, confronting the two people who were supposed to support and love her unconditionally. Emily took a deep breath. "I don't want to be someone's reminder or regret. I want to be Emily. That's who I am. And if you can't accept that, then maybe I don't belong here." She looked at me, her eyes pleading. "Mom, can we go?" I nodded, moving towards her. "Of course, sweetie." As we walked out of the house, leaving behind the shadows of the past, I felt a mix of emotions. There was pain and sorrow for the family ties that were fraying. But above all, there was pride. Pride in my daughter, who had taken a stand for herself, asserting her identity in the face of adversity. A few weeks after the confrontation, I received an official letter. Max was taking legal action, intending to gain full custody of Emily. My heart raced as I read the document. The thought of losing my daughter was unbearable. I immediately reached out to a lawyer, Jenna, who had been recommended to me by a friend. "Jenna, I won't let him take her. Not after everything," I asserted during our first meeting. Jenna looked over the papers, her expression thoughtful. "Don't worry, Lisa. The court will always consider Emily's wishes, especially given her age." The day of the hearing arrived faster than I had anticipated. The courtroom was cold and intimidating. Max sat on the other side, Clara by his side, shooting me venomous looks. The judge, a stern-looking woman with gray hair, called the session to order. "We are here to determine the custody of Emily Harrison. Both parties will present their cases." Max's lawyer, a tall man with slicked-back hair, began, "Your Honor, Mr. Harrison believes that it's in Emily's best interest to remain with him. He provides a stable environment and is fully capable of supporting her." Jenna stood up. "Your Honor, with all due respect, this case is not about financial support. It's about emotional and psychological well-being. Lisa has always been there for her daughter, even after moving away for work. The decision to alter Emily's appearance was made without her knowledge or consent, which has caused a rift between the child and her father." The judge nodded, making notes. "What does Emily have to say?" Emily, looking both nervous and determined, stood up. "Your Honor, I want to live with my mom. I love my dad, but I don't feel like he sees me for who I am. He's trying to change me, and I don't think that's right." Max interjected. "Your Honor, she's been influenced by Lisa. She doesn't know what's best for her." I couldn't hold back. "Max, this isn't about us. Stop making it about our past and focus on our daughter's future." The judge raised her hand, signaling for silence. "Enough. I've heard enough. Given Emily's age and her expressed wishes, and taking into account the circumstances presented, I believe it's in Emily's best interest to reside with her mother." A wave of relief washed over me. Max looked defeated, and for the first time, Clara was speechless. As we left the courtroom, Emily hugged me tightly. "Thank you, Mom, for everything." I kissed the top of her head. "Always, Em, always." The court had spoken, and justice had been served. But more importantly, my bond with Emily had emerged stronger, untouched by the bitterness of the past. The days following the court verdict were a whirlwind. Emily and I packed up her things from Max's house, a process that was surprisingly smooth, with Max avoiding confrontation. As we packed her things into boxes, Emily came across an old family photo album. She hesitated for a moment, then handed it to me. "Remember this, Mom?" I opened the album, looking at pictures from happier times, beach vacations, birthdays, and Christmases. "Yes, sweetie, I do. Memories, both good and bad, shape us." She nodded, her expression thoughtful. "Even though things have changed, these moments were still real, right?" I pulled her into a hug. "Absolutely. Every moment we've shared, every challenge we've faced, has brought us to where we are today." With her belongings packed, we headed to our new home. It was a cozy apartment I had rented in a nice part of the city, close to Emily's new school. As we arranged her room, the doorbell rang. Opening the door, I found Jane, my best friend, with a big housewarming basket. "Thought you two could use some treats," Jane said with a smile. Emily's face lit up, seeing the basket filled with her favorite goodies. "Thanks, Aunt Jane." As the evening settled, the three of us sat on the balcony, enjoying the city lights. Jane turned to me. "You know, Lisa, you've shown immense strength through all of this." I took a deep breath. It was tough, but I had to stand up for Emily, for us. Emily, sipping her hot cocoa, chimed in. "And I'm glad you did, Mom. It made me realize how important it is to be true to oneself." Jane nodded. "That's a valuable lesson, Em. One many adults take years to learn." As the night wore on, the three of us shared stories, laughter, and dreams for the future. The weight of the past seemed to fade, replaced by the promise of new beginnings. In the days that followed, Emily and I settled into our new routine. She joined a local art club, channeling her feelings into beautiful paintings. I took up a new job and began rebuilding our life, one day at a time. One evening, as I prepared dinner, Emily walked into the kitchen, a thoughtful look on her face. "Mom, I've been thinking. Maybe someday, when things have cooled down, we can try to mend bridges with Dad. Not for the sake of the past, but for the future." I looked at her, admiring the maturity she displayed. "We'll see, Em. Time has a way of healing wounds. For now, let's focus on us, our dreams, and the adventures ahead." She smiled. "Deal." Life was by no means perfect, but it was ours. Together, Emily and I embarked on a journey of rediscovery, of healing, and of hope. The scars of the past remained, but they no longer defined us. We had each other, and in the end, that was all that mattered. I've always lived by the code of silence. No flaunting, no arrogance, just silent gratitude for the hand I'd been dealt. When I married Jamie, I was happy and content, but his mother, oh boy, she was something else. A whirlwind of skepticism and bitterness, she accused me of being a gold digger, only after Jamie's wealth, which, honestly, wasn't that much to begin with. Little did she know about my $1,000,000 secret. We met at a cozy little coffee shop. He, with his warm smile and nervous energy, me, buried in my books and black coffee. "Can I buy you a coffee?" he asked, flashing a bashful smile. I'm Jamie. That's how it all began. An innocent offer transforming into a beautiful journey. He proposed 2 years later, in the same coffee shop, with the same bashful smile. I said yes with tears in my eyes, and we danced under the stars, feeling like the only people in the world. However, our happiness had a shadow. Jamie's mother, Mrs. Thompson, never liked me. She was convinced I was after his money, whispering snide comments whenever she thought I couldn't hear, raising her eyebrows at our love. "I've seen your kind before, preying on unsuspecting kind souls," she'd hiss. One day, after an awkward family dinner, I'd had enough. "Jamie," I said with more firmness than I felt, "I can't keep dealing with your mother's accusations and snide remarks." "Jamie," ever the pacifist, would just sigh, saying, "She's old, set in her ways. Just ignore her." Just ignore her? I would think to myself. She's making my life miserable. But I loved Jamie too much to let his mother get in between us. So I decided to have a little fun, a little revenge to get back at her for her unjust accusations. It was time Mrs. Thompson knew she wasn't the only one who could play games. My secret, you ask? I was a self-made millionaire. A successful software engineer, I had developed a program during college, which I sold for a hefty sum. The money was in a separate account, a detail I chose not to share with Jamie or his family, wanting to be loved for who I was, not for my bank balance. So, I hatched a plan. I decided to act like the gold digger Mrs. Thompson accused me of being. I splurged on lavish gifts, extravagant holidays, and five-star restaurants, all on Jamie's moderate salary. We were living the high life, or so it seemed. Jamie was confused but delighted, thinking we were spending my savings. Mrs. Thompson's sneers grew more pronounced, her comments more acidic. "I knew it! She's spending all your money!" she would sneer at Jamie. "You'll be left with nothing, mark my words." Jamie was bewildered, worried, but I would always reassure him, "Don't worry, I have it all under control." All the while, I secretly replaced every penny spent from my own account, ensuring Jamie's financial security was never compromised. Mrs. Thompson grew more furious, her accusations more frequent. Her suspicions were seemingly confirmed, and she was more than happy to tell the whole world about her gold-digging daughter-in-law. One day, she sat us down, her face a mask of seriousness, and said, "Jamie, I cannot sit back and watch her ruin you. I am cutting you off. You will not receive a penny more from me. Let's see how she stays with you when the money runs out." Jamie was a mix of confusion, anger, and embarrassment, his face turning various shades of red. "Mom, how can you say such things?" he stammered. "She loves me." "Oh, really?" she replied, eyebrows raised. "Let's see how long she stays when the money is gone." The stage was set. My seemingly frivolous spending continued, and Jamie's anxiety was reaching a peak. "What if we run out of money? What will we do?" he'd whisper at night, his voice laced with worry. "Trust me," I would say, squeezing his hand. "Everything will be all right." My secret was still safe, and the time to reveal it was drawing closer. Mrs. Thompson was in for the shock of her life. I could hardly wait. I spent days meticulously planning the grand reveal, my heart racing every time I thought about the look on Mrs. Thompson's face when she would find out the truth. She thinks she can ruin my happiness? I'd think to myself. Let's see who has the last laugh. I went on, more audacious in my spending, more theatrical in my display of wealth. Expensive gifts for Jamie, designer dresses, and ostentatious parties. I spared no expense in portraying the image of the reckless spender, the gold digger Mrs. Thompson believed me to be. One evening, as Jamie and I hosted a lavish party, Mrs. Thompson confronted me, her face red with anger. "You are ruining my son, you worthless gold digger," she hissed, her voice quivering with rage. I smiled sweetly, responding with feigned innocence. "I'm just enjoying the wealth your son provides me. Isn't that what you've been saying all along?" The fire in her eyes intensified, but she said nothing, her lips pressed into a thin line. Poor Jamie was caught in the middle, torn between the love for his mother and his love for me. "I can't take it anymore," he confessed one night, tears streaming down his face. "I can't be in the middle, torn between the two most important women in my life." That was the turning point. Seeing him so broken, so helpless, I knew it was time to put an end to this game. "Jamie," I said, my voice soft, "it's time you knew the truth." "What truth?" he asked, wiping away his tears, his eyes red and swollen. The truth about my wealth, I replied, reaching out to hold his hand. I am a millionaire, Jamie. I've been replacing every penny we've spent, ensuring you never lose anything. He stared at me, disbelief etched across his face. What? Why didn't you tell me? I wanted to be loved for me, not my wealth, I admitted, tears welling in my eyes. I wanted someone who loved Emma, the person, not Emma, the millionaire. Jamie hugged me tight, whispering, I love you, Emma, with or without your money. With Jamie now in on my secret, we decided to have one final act, the grand reveal, something Mrs. Thompson would never forget. We decided to throw a lavish banquet, inviting all our friends and family. Mrs. Thompson was, of course, the guest of honor. On the day of the banquet, the air was charged with anticipation. I wore my most extravagant dress, diamonds glittering at my throat. Jamie looked handsome in his suite, his eyes sparkling with mischief. As we stood at the podium, the room silent in anticipation, Jamie began. Ladies and gentlemen, we have gathered you all here for a special announcement. All eyes were on us, the room buzzing with whispers. Mrs. Thompson sat in the front row, her eyes glaring daggers at me. Finally, the day of reckoning has arrived, she must have thought, believing her son was about to announce his separation from the gold digger. Taking a deep breath, I spoke up. I have been accused of being a gold digger, of being with Jamie only for his wealth. The whispers grew louder, the air more tense. Jamie squeezed my hand, whispering, It's time. My heart raced as I prepared to drop the bombshell, to expose my million-dollar secret to the world, to finally have my revenge on Mrs. Thompson. The air was heavy with anticipation, the silence deafening as I began to speak. But today, I continued, my voice steady despite the racing heartbeat, I want to reveal a truth that has been hidden since the day Jamie and I met. I could feel the air thicken with curiosity, eyes wide and expectant. I am not the gold digger as I've been so vehemently accused of being, I stated, locking eyes with Mrs. Thompson, whose face was now a palette of confusion and surprise. In fact, I paused, relishing the moment. I am a self-made millionaire. My wealth exceeds that of the Thompson family. A gasp rippled through the room, a cacophony of whispers following. Mrs. Thompson's face went from red to white, shock and disbelief mingling in her eyes. I have been playing along, acting the part of the frivolous spender, the gold digger, I continued, because I wanted to expose the prejudice, the judgment, the condescension that came my way, primarily from Mrs. Thompson. Jamie stood by me, his hand squeezing mine, his face a mix of pride and love. He addressed the crowd. I am ashamed that my own mother could think so lowly of the woman I love. Emma is a remarkable woman, self-made and successful, yet she chose to be with me, to share her life with me. I could see Mrs. Thompson squirming in her seat, her face a mask of humiliation and regret. I had dreamt of this moment, rehearsed it 1,000 times in my head, but the satisfaction was sweeter than I had ever imagined. This was it, I thought to myself. The truth is out, and the tables have turned. Mrs. Thompson stood up abruptly, her voice quivering. Jamie, is this true? Emma, is this some sort of sick joke? No, Mother, Jamie replied sternly. It's the truth. A truth that Emma kept hidden to protect our relationship, to protect me. And me? Mrs. Thompson asked, her voice breaking. You never gave her a chance, Jamie retorted, his voice laced with disappointment. You judged her, accused her, tried to turn me against her. Mrs. Thompson faltered, at a loss for words. The room was buzzing, a mix of shock, admiration, and curiosity. Friends and family came forward, congratulating us, expressing their astonishment at the revelation. Questions and congratulations poured in, but my eyes were on Mrs. Thompson, who sat there, her head bowed, a picture of defeat and regret. I walked over to her, my heart heavy with mixed emotions. "Mrs. Thompson," I began, my voice soft. "I never wanted to hurt you. I just wanted to be accepted for who I am, not for my wealth or lack thereof." She looked up, tears brimming in her eyes. I am sorry, Emma. I was wrong about you." Her voice broke, the words barely a whisper. It was a moment of triumph, but it was also a moment of reconciliation. I had proven my point, had my revenge, but it was time to mend fences, to build a relationship that had been tarnished by prejudice and accusations. "I hope we can start anew, Mrs. Thompson," I said, extending my hand towards her. "Not as enemies, but as family." She took my hand, her grip firm, her eyes filled with tears. "I would like that very much, Emma." The festivities continued, laughter and joy enveloping the room, but my mind was elsewhere. The revelation had sent shockwaves through the assembly, leaving a mix of admiration and awkwardness in its wake. I found myself surrounded by a throng of well-wishers, their praises and congratulations echoing in my ears. But my thoughts were with Mrs. Thompson, with the newfound truce, the possibility of a fresh start. As the night wound down, Jamie and I stole a quiet moment together, away from the prying eyes and incessant chatter. He wrapped his arms around me, his eyes searching mine. "Emma, I am so proud of you, but I can't help but feel a pang of guilt." "Guilty? Why?" I questioned, my eyebrows knitted in confusion. "I never stood up for you, never defended you against my mother's accusations. I let her tarnish your image, question your intentions," he confessed, his voice laden with remorse. "You did what you thought was right, Jamie," I reassured him, my hand gently caressing his cheek. "You tried to keep the peace, maintain a balance between the two most important women in your life. It doesn't justify my silence, my complacency," he argued, his gaze unwavering. "I should have been your pillar, your defender. You were my strength, my support," I reminded him, my voice tinged with emotion. "You believed in me, trusted me, and loved me unconditionally. That's all I ever needed." He pulled me closer, his lips meeting mine in a tender kiss, a silent promise of love and commitment. But reality soon intruded, pulling us back to the whirlwind of celebrations, to the myriad questions and curious glances. "How did you amass such wealth? Why did you hide your fortune?" The queries were relentless, the fascination unabated. "I made smart investments," I replied, maintaining a facade of nonchalance. "I had the good fortune of having a sharp mind for business and finance." "But why hide it?" persisted an aunt, her eyes wide with intrigue. "I didn't want it to define me," I answered, my voice firm. "I wanted to be loved for who I am, not for my bank balance." The respect in their eyes was evident, the admiration palpable. Mrs. Thompson, meanwhile, watched from afar, her face a canvas of conflicting emotions. I could see the regret in her eyes, the realization of her misguided judgments, her misplaced accusations. I never meant to demean her, I thought, my heart aching for the pain I had caused. I just wanted her to see me, the real me, without the shadow of wealth and privilege. As the celebrations drew to a close and the guests started to depart, a sense of tranquility settled over me. The storm had passed, leaving behind a rainbow of possibilities, a horizon of new beginnings. Mrs. Thompson approached us, her steps hesitant, her eyes moist. "Emma, Jamie, can we talk?" she requested, her voice laced with vulnerability. We sat down, the silence thick with unsaid words, unvoiced emotions. "Emma, I want to apologize," she began, her voice trembling. "I was wrong, so horribly wrong about you." I judged you, berated you, all based on my own prejudices and insecurities," she continued, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I let my fear of losing my son cloud my judgment, taint my perception." "I am sorry, Emma," she apologized, her gaze locked onto mine, pleading for forgiveness. "I hope you can find it in your heart to forgive an old woman's foolishness." "I have already forgiven you, Mrs. Thompson," I replied, my hand reaching out to hold hers. "I only hope we can move past this, build a relationship based on trust and respect." "I would like that, Emma," she responded, her grip tightening on my hand. "I would like to get to know the remarkable woman my son has chosen to spend his life with." The journey had been long, the road fraught with obstacles and heartache, but the destination was worth every step, every tear. I had sought revenge, yearned for vindication, but in the end, I found something much more valuable, much more enduring: acceptance, understanding, and the promise of a new beginning. The air the next day was different, lighter, like the weight of years of misunderstandings and accusations had been lifted. The sun seemed to shine a little brighter, the birds sang a little sweeter, and the world felt anew, ripe with the promise of redemption. As Jamie and I walked through the garden, hand in hand, the atmosphere was tinged with a newfound sense of harmony, a symbiosis of souls. "Emma, do you think my mother will change?" Jamie pondered, a hint of uncertainty in his voice. "I believe people can change," I mused, my gaze fixed on the horizon, especially when they realize the error of their ways. A flicker of hope danced in Jamie's eyes, a silent prayer for reconciliation, for healing. "I hope we can become a family, a real family," he whispered, his voice tinged with longing. "I hope so too," I agreed, squeezing his hand reassuringly. "But it will take time, effort, and a lot of patience." Days turned into weeks, and weeks into months. The path to reconciliation was slow, laden with hurdles and setbacks. But the commitment was unwavering, the resolve unbroken. Mrs. Thompson was genuinely trying to mend her ways, to build bridges and heal wounds. We spent more time together, learned about each other, shared stories and experiences. I saw the vulnerability behind her stern facade, the fear of loneliness, of abandonment. She saw my love for Jamie, my dreams and aspirations, the essence of who I am. "I am starting to understand why Jamie loves you so much," Mrs. Thompson confided one day, a smile playing on her lips. "You are a remarkable young woman, Emma." "And I am starting to see the loving, caring mother behind the formidable matriarch," I replied, my heart swelling with hope. There were awkward moments, uncomfortable silences, but the ice was breaking, the walls crumbling. We were learning to see each other not as adversaries, but as allies, as family. "I never thought I'd say this, but I am glad you are a part of our lives, Emma," Mrs. Thompson admitted one evening, her eyes moist with unshed tears. "I am glad to be here, to be a part of this family," I responded, a warmth spreading through my soul. Jamie watched the unfolding camaraderie with a mixture of disbelief and joy, his heart dancing to the rhythm of newfound connections, of love and acceptance. "I never thought I'd see the day when you two would sit together, laugh together," he marveled, his eyes shining with happiness. "It's a testament to the power of love, of forgiveness," I said, my hand entwined with his. "I am proud of you both," he declared, his voice thick with emotion. "You've shown me the strength of the human spirit, the capacity for change and growth." And as we sat there, under the canopy of the twinkling stars, a sense of peace enveloped us, a feeling of belonging. The journey had been tumultuous, the battles intense, but the victory was sweet, the reward priceless. I set out to teach her a lesson, to make her realize the error of her ways, I reflected, my mind wandering back to the days of pain and strife. But in the process, I learned about the power of compassion, of understanding. I wanted revenge. I wanted justice, I thought, the echoes of past animosities resonating in my soul. But I found something much more profound, much more meaningful: love, family, and the promise of a better tomorrow. I didn't just gain a husband, I gained a family, I mused, my heart brimming with gratitude. And in the process, I discovered the essence of true wealth, the richness of the human spirit. And as the curtain fell on this chapter of our lives, a new one awaited, full of possibilities and adventures, of love and laughter. The journey was just beginning, and I was ready to embrace it, to savor every moment, every emotion.